1.48 million litres. Queues persist. COP27 Nigerians to benefit from UK £95 million support. Farmers trade a sea surge in food prices over flood. Gas flaring penalties hit $341 million in 10 months. Details now. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited stock of premium motor spirit, also called petrol, dipped by 5,481,239 litres. According to industry data released on Tuesday, although the drop in PMS stock was marginal, queues for petrol persist in Abuja, Nasarawa, Niger and some northern states. Figures obtained from the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority on Tuesday indicated that the total PMS stock of NNPC as of November 6, 2022 was 1,912,725,464 litres. This dipped to 1,907,244,225,000 litres on November 7, 2022. Which indicates a drop of 5,481,239 litres, while the total day sufficiency was 30.84. NNPC has remained the sole importer of petrol into Nigeria for several years running. Other marketers halted petrol imports due to their inability to access foreign exchange without hassles. However, the queues for petrol in many northern states did not abate on Tuesday, despite the claims by NMDPRA that there were over 30 days sufficiency. Rather, a lot of filling stations were short due to lack of products to dispense. The cost of petrol had risen to as high as 200 naira a litre at depots. PMS cost, which was about 178 naira to 185 naira per litre recently, has jacked up by private depot owners due to the drop in supply by the NNPC, among other operational concerns. Both the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria and the Petroleum Retail Outlet Owners Association of Nigeria disclosed the correspondence that tankers now spend more than 1 week on queues for petrol at depots. This, they said, had led to empty filling stations nationwide, a development that had caused chaos at some of the few outlets that dispense petrol in Abuja, Nasarawa, Niger and neighboring states. The National Vice President Ipman Abubakar Maigandi confirmed the reduction in supply by NNPC and the hike in the ex-depot price of petrol at depots in Lagos and Warri, Delta states. Meanwhile, the UK Foreign Secretary James Cleverly has said at least 4 million Nigerians will benefit from the £95 million Promcom investment aimed at increasing productivity and adapting to the effects of climate change, while at the same time reducing emissions. Cleverly revealed this at the COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. In a statement made available by the British High Commission on Tuesday, the new £95 million Promcom Plus program is set to help address key barriers to sustainable agricultural development in Nigeria. It would support the development of climate-resilient agricultural policies, actions and investments that deliver nutrition, increase productivity, adapt and build resilience while reducing emissions and protect and restore natural ecosystems. Now, as the festive season draws near, Nigerian farmers have raised concerns over an impending food shortage and heightened prices as insecurity and flood hamper production. Data from the National Bureau of Statistics indicates that Nigeria's food inflation quickened for the 7th straight month to 23.34% in September 2022 from 23.12% in the previous month. The figure was the highest reading since October 2005, probably partly due to supply disruptions caused by recent widespread flooding and as a weaker naira continued to boost costs of imported food. Findings show that a 50-kilogram bag of rice locally produced, which previously was sold for between 15,000 naira and 20,000 naira in Abuja, is now sold for over 35,000 naira, while the price of a bag of foreign rice hovers around 40,000 naira. A bean trader in Maranaba Market who identified himself simply as Jonathan disclosed to correspondents that a bag of beans which was previously sold for 27,000 naira now sells at 30,000 naira, while 20 litres of palm oil that was sold for 10,000 naira now goes for 25,000 naira. Similarly, 20 litres of groundnut oil, which used to be 15,500 naira, is now sold for an average of 35,000 and a possibility of more increased. Commenting on the food prices, Mary Afan, president of Small Scale Women Farmers Association in Nigeria, said there is no succor in sight as farmers recount losses from flood incidents in some parts of the country. Now, the penalty for flaring gas in Nigeria from January to October this year has hit $341.1 million, and this is according to the National Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency, NOSDRA. Gas flaring is the surface combustion or burning of natural gas that is often associated with crude oil production when pumped up from the ground. According to NOSDRA, the current penalties for gas flaring in Nigeria officially stands at $2 per 1,000 standard cubic feet. Currently, companies producing more than 10,000 barrels per day pay a fine of $2 per 1,000 standard cubic feet of gas flared, while companies producing less than 10,000 barrels per day pay a fine of $0.5. In 2018, the federal government increased the penalty for gas flaring from 10 naira per 1,000 standard cubic feet to Since 1984, it has been illegal to flare gas in Nigeria without the written permission of the Minister of Petroleum Resources. According to GFT, from Nigeria from January to October 2022, the flared gas emitted 9.1 million tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, which is worth $596.9 million. In addition, gas flaring shows economic losses because these gases can be utilized locally by power companies and other wholesale energy consumers or even exported. And still on the business report at 3, revenue committees in local governments and local council development areas of Lagos State will adopt the professional standards of the Lagos State Internal Revenue Service to improve collection and increase internally generated revenue. This was a resolution of stakeholders in the revenue collection system in local governments at a workshop held in Lagos on Monday to deliberate on the prospect of professionalizing revenue collection in the local government areas and local council development areas. Sponsored by the Lagos State Internally Revenue Generated Service, it featured contributions from representatives of the Conference of Council Chairmen, the Local Government Service Commission, the body of council managers, council treasurers, human resources officers, and chairmen of revenue committees. In a keynote address, Ayosu Bayir, chairman of LIRS, represented by Shagun Tijani, station manager Ikeja, highlighted provisions of the constitutions that empower the local government to collect revenue. Now, citing the 4th schedule and sections 162 in the 1999 Constitution on the local government, which is the approved levies law of 2010, Zubair said the laws mandate local governments to act professionally in the estimation, assessment and collection of revenues. Now, to further protect revenue collection, Zubair enlightened the participants that the House of Assembly enacted the State and Local Government Public Finance and Management Law with a provision in Section 57 for a local government revenue committee. He stated further that the failure of local governments to manage revenue collection professionally created a lot of problems for the state government and led to the enactment of laws that made the state the agent of the councils in collecting land use charges, signage and advertising, and lately the management of parks. Now, Nigeria's headline inflation rate is projected to increase for the 9th consecutive month by 0.55% to 21.32% in October 2022 from 20.77% in September. In a new economic report, the FTC analysts led by economist Bismarck Rouhani said food inflation would also rise by 0.62% to 23.95%, while core inflation would increase by 0.18% to 20.5%. However, the recent flood in the major food-producing states will rob the country of the price moderation effects of the harvest season. The flood in Africa's biggest economy has been majorly attributed to the release of water from the Cameroonian Lacto Dam, which affected Nigeria because of its lack of flood defense mechanism, such as the Dustin Hausa Dam, which should have been built 40 years ago and would have been able to cushion the effect of whatever came from Lacto. Data from UN OCHA World Food Programme and Telima Research shows that the country currently has the largest number of people, which is about 3,480, hit by flooding among 19 African countries. The situation has prompted Sadia Umar Farouk, Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, to ask the 5 state governments badly affected by the flood to prepare to evacuate residents living along floodplains. While still wallowing in the effects of the Ukraine-Russia war, hangovers from the coronavirus pandemic, and constraints imposed by insecurity and poor macroeconomic policies, new problems have emerged and old ones have cycled back. The high inflationary pressures in the country have caused over 105 million Nigerians to live in extreme poverty. This is according to data from the World Poverty Clock of the Brookings Institute, and the World Bank estimates that the inflation is likely to push an additional 1 million Nigerians into poverty by the end of 2022, on top of the 6 million Nigerians that were already predicted to fall into poverty this year. And just before we wrap up the business report at 3, let's take a look again at the focal points. You heard that petrol stock dips by 5.48 million litres. Queues persist in some parts of Lagos. COP27, Nigerians to benefit from UK £95 million support. Farmers, traders see surge in food prices over flood. And gas flaring penalties hit $341 million in 10 months. That is a wrap on the business report at 3 on Voice of the People 90.3. My name is Esther Wachukudu. Follow our social media platforms at VOP 903 FM. Good afternoon and thank you for listening.